You guys can see the slide in front of you.
Yeah, I remember that.
All right.
That was in Chicago,
That's right.
2012.
Okay, welcome to another episode of The Diplomats. We are here recording with former world champion, Michael Doc Binder, for the purposes of, unfortunately, he was first eliminated from the Season 5 Nexus Online Championship. And we want to talk about him, his game, and just his general predictions for what will happen in the game. We will not release this interview, so you will be hearing this after the game is over, so you will be judged against reality at the time, which is always difficult for diplomacy players. And on an initial note, we'd like to thank diplomacybriefing.com for sponsoring our podcast. And I'm here with Superstition, who's been doing a lot of the podcast with us. Audacious Hand may jump in, but Michael Doc Binder, Otto Van Spankenhouse, thank you for coming on, and congratulations on being the top seed going into the game, and for enjoyable play to watch, if not necessarily to play in.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, Doc, I always like to ask people a little bit about their diplomacy background. I know you're from the face-to-face world, but what got you attracted to diplomacy? How long you've been playing? Why do you keep coming back to it?
Oh my. I first started, I'm old. I have turned 65. I first started playing in college. It was the weekend before Thanksgiving, and I was asked to join a group of 6 other people and a keg of beer. And we started playing on Saturday and played until the keg ran out sometime on Sunday. Probably got about 3 games in, and I was hooked. I fell in love with it. It was a game of strategy. It was a game of conversation. And the school I went to, its 2 strongest departments were psych and geography. So you can imagine how well that fit into this particular game.
Oh, yeah.
And I had fun. And
so did you play Postal for a long time, or face-to-face, or?
When I graduated, the 7 of us tried to play 1 game of Postal. We never got to the end of it, and I didn't play again until I found it online sometime in early 2000s, late 1990s, somewhere around then.
When I started.
Yeah. Somebody said that I was really good and I should go play in the World Championship. I had absolutely no idea that people were doing this. And in 2007, I played in my first tournament. And I stopped playing online shortly thereafter. I just think the face-to-face game is a much more interesting game.
Okay. Well, we have your best results according to the World Diplomacy Database.
Yeah.
And so I see that when you won your World Championship, you soloed as France, which was the same country you had in this tournament.
Yeah, I hold the distinction of being the only person to ever solo the top board at a Worlds.
And if I'm not mistaken,
and I probably will always be that person. I don't think anyone else will do that.
If I'm not mistaken, you also soloed in the same tournament as France prior to the final round.
Yes, that was in the 3rd round.
That's a pretty good tournament.
Yeah, that was a pretty good France. I needless to say, I won best France at that Worlds. I'd also won best France at the Worlds the year before in Sydney.
So why did you decide to play in the Nexus tournament, the online tournament that they did?
Because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I couldn't play face to face. And one of my face to face friends invited me onto Nexus, where he said I can get some good games with people that don't quit, because that was always the problem with online play. Back when I was playing on the judges, if somebody quit, you had a GM that would find a replacement player. And we stopped the game until we found a replacement player. Here, they just keep on playing. And, I played in 1 game. I think there were 3 people left because everybody else had quit. So I said, this is silly. And then, you had a tournament. So I said, okay, I'll play. And it's been a lot of fun.
And you were I don't, Superstition, do you know how many entrants there were? Was it 150? Do you know how many?
I don't have that number. It's probably around 144, something like that.
Yeah. So you were the number 1 seed. I believe you played Austria in game 1 and got to 16 centers or around there.
Somewhere, yeah.
Russia, 16 or 17 really quickly in a game.
Yeah, that was almost a solo in 05.
I played France in that game. I kind of messed you up at the end. I was giving you the centers of the other people. And then
well, that's how most solos happen.
Right. And then
somebody's helping you. It's hard to solo on your own. Especially if you're against good people, you should never have a solo.
It was blind rage on my part till I realized maybe I should accept some score less than I wanted as opposed to 0.
Yeah, but if Italy took Budapest with the other army, I would have soloed in 05. And then in 06 you would jump sides and we ended the game.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So you got to pick first and you picked France.
Yes.
And you've given I want to tell you, I've done a little bit of research. You can go onto Diplomacy World, the fall 2012 issue, where you wrote an article after your World Championship, and you explained why you picked France in that article, because you had soloed in there, and that you liked France. And the explanation you gave during the DBN interview was, oh, well, I played all my games in the East during the online tournament, so I just thought I'd go to the West and pick France. Was that being accurate when you said that on the DBN interview?
No, of course not. No. I knew that I was going to be a target. I was seeded number 1. I'm a former world champion, and everybody on the board knew it. And I knew that I was going to be a target, and I can defend France better than I can defend any other country. And that's, he was the perfect example. Nobody would work with me for the entire game, and yet I still lasted to 1907, through 1907.
Correct.
So
it was a hell of a defense.
That was a lot. Well, this is what I wanted to. I explained that to my neighbors. I said, "Don't attack me. You're going to be wasting a lot of time." Germany stabbed England, and because of that, he's got as good a chance as anybody of topping this board.
Sure. I looked in the article, by the way. It said one of your favorites was the FG Alliance. Was that something you were thinking of when you picked France as well, or was it just purely defensive?
I always like to play an FG Alliance. I also like to play an FE. And to me, the game is a game of alliance building. You can't do well without an ally. Even with this scoring system, I think that you need to have a strong alliance. So I was looking for an ally at the beginning. The person who picked second picked Germany after I had picked France. So I was kind of hoping that would be an FG Alliance. I thought we had one, and it did not turn out to be the case.
So when you're an alliance player, and you've been around a long time, obviously, in the game, what raises your radar, or what gets your radar going when trust is starting to falter a bit and that you think the alliance might end? What signs do you look for?
Communication. Okay, it's a game of communication. When I'm looking for an ally, I want somebody who talks well, who's going to be able to talk to me and strategize with me. And when that begins to fall off, I know that there's an issue.
It's a sixth sense.
Yeah, and I get stabbed sometimes, and I don't know that it's coming. And that's part of the risk of being an alliance player.
I think I read in this article from your 2012 championship that were you stabbed? Am I right in thinking that Peter Jurgen stabbed you, or am I just
Yeah, Peter stabbed me. He thought I was going to solo. and wanted to prevent the solo. It was a weird tournament because it had two different scoring systems, one for the North American and one for the Worlds. And if Peter and I tied that board, he would have won the Worlds and I would have won the North American, which was sort of interesting.
Yeah. It didn't work out. I note here at the end that you said in your article you gained 6 dots in 1910 and
Yes.
didn't have control of Burgundy and Gascony, even though you ended up on 19. That's hilarious,
Yes.
by the way.
Yeah, my one of those dots that I got was taking, I forget if it was Romania or Bulgaria, with my French fleet coming out of the Black Sea. I was supported into Romania or Bulgaria. That was one of those 6 dots. I
So
guessed
there
right in England, and that got me Edinburgh and Liverpool.
There have not been a lot of these, superstition, correct me if I'm wrong, fully non-anonymous Nexus tournaments, and you jumped in a couple of days ago to say that you liked the fact that there was no anonymity in this tournament, even though, I think conventional wisdom would have said it may have been better for you to have been anonymous technically in the game if people didn't know who you were.
Yeah, but that's not the game. When you play face to face, you know who everybody is. You aren't walking around with a bag on your head. When we used to play online, everybody knew who they were, and or who the others were, and we made friendships. We learned who people were, and we got to spend months with them, because unlike now where they're 24-hour turnover time, we were playing with people from all over the world, and we had 3 days with no turns on the weekends. So sometimes you would go 6-7 days without a turn, and you'd be spending 4 to 6 months playing with these people. And you got to know each other, and you got to make friends, and you live part of your lives together, because it takes time playing online. It's not like face-to-face where you have a 15-minute turn. You're spending a lot more time riding with these people and talking to them. And, when I traveled, I'd often see them. When they would come to Florida, we would make arrangements to a meet. You don't see that anymore. Not in this sort of an environment where nobody knows that you're Ed Sullivan.
Right, virtual.
That I'm Doc Binder. You're Go Horns Go.
It's just like reality TV isn't reality. Virtual is not real.
Right. And this is why when we're playing virtual face-to-face games, everybody knows who everybody is. There isn't any anonymity when you play into those tournaments.
Season 3 of the Nexus was completely non-anonymous. Well, you still had your name, but everyone knew who everyone was playing.
Right.
Right.
I preferred it just because I thought it was more fun. It was more engaging online. People knew who to root for. A lot of the better players who had created a villain status did not like it because they were targeted more. But in my mind, it makes a better community because you don't have those people being villainous. They're actually trying to make a positive image for themselves.
I will tell you 2 things. Firstly, after I won the Worlds, I went about 3 years without anybody wanting to work with me, because somebody at the table would go, "He's a former world champion, let's go wipe him out." But on the other side of the coin is, I prefer face-to-face because it's a community. I go to these tournaments to be with my friends. And I miss this even in virtual face-to-face. We're not all going out for drinks after, talking about the games, having dinner together and socializing. It's just, I'm sitting here playing a game online and I'm doing it for 2 or 3 days in a row. It gets to be a bit, it isn't the same.
It's not the same, but just describe for me, just in general, the intensity level. I played in the season 2 finals, and it consumed my life, my non-working life, and a significant portion of my working life for 3 to 4 weeks, with the amount of press that flies, with the engagement level of the players, with the number of people watching and commenting on every move on the board with dumb podcasts like this going on. But I assume this had to be a pretty intense game in terms of the online ones you play.
Yes, and it takes up a great deal of your time. This was the advantage, by the way, of having turns every 3 days instead of every 24 hours.
Right.
But no, it's very intense. It was even harder for me because I've had two people who were gone for half of my waking days because they were in Europe.
Correct. That's England and France.
England and England and Germany. And
England and Germany.
Yeah,
England and Germany. Yeah.
And I'm sitting in France going, okay, it's 7:00 here. Good night. And we're not going to talk again until I wake up and I've got things to do in the mornings. And it was much more awkward.
But on the other hand, there was speculation that you would know Tom as Italy in the face-to-face world. Did you know him?
No.
Okay. So you had no.
I didn't know anybody on this board except for through this particular Nexus tournament.
Right. I believe you played Ewok or Village Idiot in an earlier preliminary game, if I'm not mistaken.
And EVR. We were all on the same board. And we worked well together as a group. But that was
all right.
Yeah.
So talk about opening strategy. I mean, the only thing we've always laughed about is the speculation was that there would be an EG against you, maybe an EGI, and you didn't move to the channel, right away. Tell us what your goal was. What were you thinking at the beginning? What you tried to accomplish? You mentioned a little bit about trying to work with Germany.
I wanted to work well. England had no interest in working with me. I could tell that, and I was told that. He wanted to wipe me out. I wanted to keep him off of the mainland, and I tried to convince Germany that the easiest way to do that was for me to be in Burgundy and to bounce him. And he agreed with that, and I forced Burgundy because I wanted to make sure that I had a say in what happened up in Belgium. And if I don't force it and he bounces me, then England ends out in Belgium. So that's what we did. And we agreed not to do a sea lion, and England and I agreed not to go to the channel. So.
All right. So your read at the time was you thought
my concern was that there was going to be an Eastern triple, that they were all going to go after Conk in Turkey. And I thought that we might want to consider a Western triple, but I couldn't get Germany to do it. And then they finally decided to support the convoy into Belgium in the fall, and they were going to attack me. And I love
any of the artwork, by the way.
I've been enjoying the artwork. I thought that was real interesting.
Yeah, it's Lady Razor's fantastic on here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this was bad news for you right off the bat with
right.
Germany helping the convoy into Belgium.
Yeah, and I spent the rest of my game defending just about, except for the one turn where Germany stabbed England, and he let me, and he helped me. That was, what was that? The 9th move of the game.
Yeah,
seventh move of the game was the only time that I was getting any help out of anybody.
To the extent you're comfortable, give us the read of the diplomatic or tactical evaluation you make of England and Germany. There was a question. Well, like here, I mean, I can't remember where it was. I think it was here in fall 1902. Tactically, they worked it out later, but they were a little slow getting off the ground against you.
Yes. Well, like I said, I could play defense, and I knew that I can defend France well, and that's what I tried to do. I had lost Burgundy, but I bounced in Paris, so he couldn't take it. Bounced a bunch of pieces around and tried not to get anybody moving anywhere. And if I was hoping that if they moved slowly enough, I could get one of them to jump sides against the other.
So let me just ask you your impression of, I'm not asking for personal comments as much as I am just like in your head, what you were thinking. Russia played pretty passive,
Yep.
but had St. Petersburg to worry about. Austria and Italy have sort of gone back and forth a lot in this game. What's your read on what's happening, not just at this time, but really kind of on the East in general?
I thought the East was somewhat in a disarray. I was expecting Austria and Russia to work well together, and Russia kept taking dots off of Austria, but he couldn't hold them. And that I thought that was a mistake on Russia's part, Ewok. Italy kept bouncing back and forth between East and West. It was very difficult to trust him. You can see here he moved to Gulf of Lyon. He did that telling me that he was going to do it to help me. And I think the next move, he moved somewhere else. He moved to Western Med. Here you see Warsaw moving to Silesia. I was asking for help from the AR Alliance.
Right.
It came too little, too late for me. But I finally got some help out of Russia. But Austria did move to Bohemia like he was asked. He decided to bounce Tyrolia, which really didn't hurt him.
How deceptive in the communications, were the East with? I mean, you're giving me ideas that they're telling you they're doing stuff and not doing it. My play with you is that you are more of a silent player if you weren't going to do something, but I'm sure you do lie and have, but it was rare. Was there a lot of lying going on? You don't have to point fingers.
Yeah. I was being told that I was going to get help, and I wasn't getting any. I kept asking for things from them. I tried not to get into specifics about what they were going to do with pieces that had nothing to do, nothing to do with me. So when, they were going to convoy Bulgaria to Naples, I didn't know about it. Didn't ask about it. Wasn't important.
Yeah, well, it seems odd that they felt the need to be deceptive with you, because what could you have done if they just told you the truth?
Right. Nobody's talking to me.
You had no leverage.
On my side of the board, nobody's talking to me. I'm just sort of hanging out, minding my own business, and defending myself as best as I could.
Right. So it just kind of goes downhill.
Yeah.
In large measure, but
in that particular move, I think I went to NAO so I can take Liverpool, giving up MAO, knowing that I've got a 50-50 chance of defending Spain, Portugal, and Brest.
Oh, I don't know if you've listened to anything that we've done, but like every turn, we're just like, we love the tactics. Like there was so much to learn watching your tactics from a bad spot. So it was helpful to other people, even though it probably wasn't fun.
It was, well, I'm playing a game. It's always fun. But I used to do this with Eddie Brisson. We would be next to each other, and I would purposely attack him just to learn how to defend that my attack. And he's so good at it. So yeah, I'm glad people learned from me. I thought that was nice. That was very sweet.
So well, I'm not used to being called sweet.
Yeah, I understand.
But look, everyone's been in this spot in the game of diplomacy, and what were you? I mean, I assume you were trying to talk to both England and Germany throughout this sort of fiasco, slow, grinding, long. Come up with your synonym, plotting attack on you, that one's going to turn on the other, and it seemed like for the longest time they just weren't buying what you were selling. But it did appear obvious from the map that we frankly thought there would be a stab, or I did, and there was.
Yeah, I always tried to be in a position where I could be of help to somebody when they were going to make that stab. And Germany finally made the stab in, what, 05?
Yeah, trying to get to it.
Try to remember. I think it was 05.
Hold on. Yeah, here. Yes, fall of '05, I believe.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be a fall turn. You
Yeah,
don't want
of
to stab
course.
in the spring. So yeah, I mean so he helped me into Brest. The only time I got any help the whole game was in fall of '05. And,
Right.
right. Um,
I'm surprised he didn't ask you to help him into Paris. I mean, into Brest.
yeah. Well, if you didn't help me into Brest, I wasn't going to have any pieces left. Theoretically, that could have been my only piece. Again, it was one of those too little, too late things, but I offered to be his janissary at that point.
We were wondering on the podcast, this move from Portugal to Gascony, did you think England was going to convoy you? Was there some argument from England on that?
I offered to be convoyed to help England. So yeah, that was part of it. Rather than, because he was supposed to take it. If he left me alone and put me in Gascony, maybe then we have armies going forward against Germany with the Italians' help. Because Germany at that time was the biggest power on the board, and he was growing.
And your view of England at this point is he's just very loyal to Germany?
Yes, and he was getting loyal with the Italian. And the Italian purposely misordered here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Germany talked him into that misorder so that I could stay with two pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept offering wonderful opportunities to people. I think the next one came in '07 when I finally got eliminated. I showed Italy, if you skip ahead to fall of '07.
We loved it.
Right. Here was a beautiful opportunity for Italy where he could walk into London, stay in Spain, talk Russia into not letting England take St. Pete. England would be down to 2. I would be down to 2 dots, but only 1 piece, and he would get a build. Instead, he has to disband, and England goes up to a 6.
And you stop him from Paris.
Yeah.
With the little move out.
Exactly.
What was Italy saying?
He wasn't interested. And England told me that he was going to that he was going to take me. Italy was trying to talk me into supporting England into the English Channel. Just to distract me. He had no interest, and I think it's going to come back to haunt him, because if he was at 8 and England was only at 2 and I was at 2, and working with Italy, I get a build as soon as I move out of Brest. Come on. Build an army. Italy has a good shot of winning the game. But now I don't think he has any shot of winning the game. Of course, I don't know what's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. But I think that was a big mistake on Tom's part. He had the opportunity to be a big player, and still behind Germany, Germany looks like a bigger target.
I mean, it certainly looks to be Germany's game to lose with Austria close second. I mean,
Right.
I don't really see another real contender.
No,
Maybe.
that's how I see it now.
Yeah.
I think Italy could have been part of that discussion had he stabbed England in the fall of '07.
And your view of Germany's diplomacy. I mean, clearly you tried to work with them. You did for a little bit work with them. I know he's European. How's his English?
Just fine. Both of them spoke well. I had no problem talking to either one of them.
All right. And you talked about the time zone issue. Is that a huge, I mean, would they make themselves available seemingly
Always.
anytime?
They were available when they were available.
Right.
I never had a problem making. making contact when I knew that they were around.
So one of the things you said in your World DipCon article was the metagame took over at some point, and you kind of won the popularity contest near the end of the game. What's your view of who's going to win the popularity contest? I mean, we can read the map from the outside, but we weren't in the game. Obviously England feels betrayed by Germany still.
Of course.
But
yeah.
What's your view of who's popular?
Wow. I really don't know. I was off to one side. I don't know I really don't know what's going on in the East per se. Italy has been unreliable to everybody, so I don't think he's going to be considered popular. Russia kept stabbing Austria, and I don't think he's going to be popular. I don't think Turkey's going to be around at the end, where it's going to make a whole lot of difference. I think Turkey will get eaten up by Austria just because he needs the extra dots.
Right.
So the popular person is probably Germany and maybe Austria.
Well, that's my sort of read of it from the outside. But
yeah, and I think it's going to come down to the two of them. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You didn't interrupt. I was just wondering if Conk had time to write you super long essays on life and the game, even though you both were sort of relatively out of it for a long time in this game.
Early on, we wrote a lot more than near the end when I got down to a couple of dots and nobody's talking to me from the East. I didn't hear much from Conk anymore. Still kept in touch with Russia and Austria but even then there wasn't a whole lot of conversation. They didn't have much to say to me because I didn't have anything to help them. I'm stuck in Portugal and Brest.
You made it longer than I thought you would have, Doc. But that's what great players do.
No. I did the best that I could in tough circumstances. And I had fun doing it. That's what it's about.
Superstition, any questions for Doc?
Yeah, I consider myself an alliance player too. I've been in 2 finals, had the same pretty much result where I just can't buy an ally. And I think it's very hard for me to connect non-Americans. I know yours is probably more of a reputation thing. Mine is partially that, but even in my qualifying games, I don't know if it's colloquialisms or what, but I just cannot make a connection for a sustaining alliance with non-Americans. So I didn't know if you had that problem or if you saw it as that, or what you feel like was the major con for you not to be able to get Russian help early or any of your neighbors.
I think as far as my immediate neighbors were concerned, I was in first place. I was a former world champion. Let's get rid of him. Mm-hmm. There are typically 2 ways of looking at playing with players that have good reputations. You either want to work with them because they are trustworthy, or you want to get rid of them because they are better than you are, and you are afraid of them. And more times than not, I find that it's the latter. For the time when those 3 years after I won the Worlds, the only people who would ally with me were the ones who knew that they were at least as good, if not better than I was, because I'm not the best player in the world, or they knew that I was a trustworthy ally, and they wanted to work with me. Otherwise, I was struggling. I remember one game I was playing, I think it was at the Worlds at the DixieCon. Guy named Manis Hand, big player in
Sure.
Colorado. We were on a board. I was England, he was France, and everyone else on the board looked at us and go, "We need to wipe them out." And then nobody would talk to us, but they couldn't wipe us out. We even tried to help them. We had nothing better to do, so we just convoyed Norway to North Africa because we could, and then convoyed back into Denmark because we could. And it's just, we were just trying to have some fun because we weren't going to beat the other five players that were all united against us, and they were playing defense against us. It was a strange game.
Doc, help me improve my online play. A couple questions for you.
Sure.
I attribute my poor showing mostly to being in games with you this time, but in general, right? Like I've done well enough. I'm happy with my results in this virtual tournament. Although virtual tournaments, I used to be online, because you can see I'm personable, I'm charming. People like me. You called me sweet, and then online, I'm very much the same way. I'm open. I was writing, and at first it was sort of a threat. Well, he's too friendly, and then I started throwing out suggestions, which I think were taken more as like a series of options that were good for me. And what is the sweet spot on how to succeed, at least in the preliminary games? I imagine a lot of newer players who are thinking about going online might watch this interview. Like, help understand what you saw as the trick or the knack to online play.
I like to look for the best communicators, the ones who can talk to me and be honest with me and lay out ideas and discuss things. That's what I look for. That's what I want in an ally. If they're being secretive, if they're not responding to the questions that I ask, I don't want them as my ally. And that's how I pick an ally. And I hope that we make that kind of a connection.
I definitely felt like I made a connection with you, at least in the first game.
Yeah, when you were Russia?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
I made a wrong guess and I lived with it.
We made some bad guesses there.
Yeah.
It was only after you were gone that I started making better guesses and did well on that board.
Yeah, but I enjoyed playing with you very much. Even
you.
when you took my last center, I was happy for you. The other question I have is the format going to 1910. Now, I know you won your world championship in a 10-year game, but knowing it is 1910, all things being equal, where you're not being beset by attacks from all your neighbors, how does one approach a tournament or a game or a final like that?
In Europe, all the tournaments end at a particular year. And they do that so they can all go out eating and drinking together. But it makes sure the games don't go on forever. I've seen games in some tournaments where they start at night and they don't end until the next morning, just before the next round starts. So I like it. I think it's a nice way to play, because for me, especially face to face, I'm doing it to be with my friends. But I find that last year you're setting things up. Well, the next to last year, you're setting things up to get as many dots as you can in that last year, and you'll see this in European play, and you have to be aware of it, and you have to set up for it. And I'm not especially good at it because I don't play it often enough.
Well, it's a mistake I made in my finals on Nexus, and I think we're recording this right after the fall 1908 moves of process. I think it's a mistake Austria just made by helping Germany, the board leader, get a dot.
Oh, get a dot in Venice. Yeah,
with
I saw that.
4 moves left to play. So
Right.
it's something that has to be present on your mind. It wasn't when I was playing.
But if he can get into position to take that dot away from him,
right,
then it's what happens in 1910 that counts.
That's right. Well, we all can't get 6 centers in 1910, Doc, but we can learn from you. I really appreciate it. Superstition, are you good?
I just want to know if you had fun and if you think you'd do it again.
Probably, but I think I'm going to take a vacation. One thing I've learned from playing online with everybody here is that I miss the camaraderie. I play diplomacy to be with my friends, not to play the game anymore. And that's what I've learned this past pandemic, where I got back online for the first time since I, went and started working for the federal government in '09. Because you can't get online at work. You're not allowed to have your private email. You're not allowed to get on any of these websites. You can't get on Discord. So I stopped playing online. And so it's my first time playing online since 2008. And it's nice, it's fun, but I'm not enjoying it the way that I do playing face to face.
Well, you'll come back. It took me I had to decompress for 3 months after my finals. I think you'll play again.
Yeah.
But by the way, your answer there was true OG. You can ask your son what that means, Doc. But that's Vito Corleone sitting in the field of grapes at the end of Godfather 1. He's done it all. He's got everything. He doesn't. He's got. Life
I
is,
understand.
life is there.
I've won the worlds. I've got nothing to prove to myself or to anybody else.
Correct.
I'll always be a world champion.
That's awesome.
And it's as I tell people who don't play the game, it's kind of like winning a gold medal in javelin. You don't know anybody else who's done it, but it's kind of cool. So I think I'm going to take a break. Probably come back for a DixieCon over Memorial Day weekend. And I'm hoping by then maybe it'll be face to face. That we get everybody vaccinated at the beginning of the year and think about getting together as a group again. And for those people who haven't done face-to-face, come to one of the tournaments. They're all posted somewhere. I know somebody's got a newsletter that comes out weekly.
That's our sponsor, diplomacybriefing.com.
Yes, great. I mean, it lists all the tournaments. People need to come out. It's a lot of fun to play with 15-minute turns. It's a lot different than 24-hour turns. You got to think on your feet, talk fast, write things down quickly. You're going to make mistakes. We all do. I make far fewer mistakes playing online because I've got so much more time to do it. But it's the way the game should be played, especially if you can get a keg of beer.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and it was great having you in this tournament. I know the Nexus community was happy and thrilled that you played, and you certainly added a lot of excitement to the tournament and to the game in general and to this interview. So thank you very much, world champion Doc Binder. According to Nicola Sahage, Nicola is the only former world champion. Everyone else gets called world champion, but Doc is a world champion.
I am the 2012 world champion.
So in any event, they'll put it on your epitaph. Thank you so much for playing, and hope to see you soon face to face, virtually, online anyway, but it was a pleasure. You're a true gentleman, Doc. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ed. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Hold on.
And that's the end.
That's the end.